many Americans seem kind of blindsided by the Supreme Court pulling all these rabbits out of the hat. I mean, just step after step after step of flipping the country more hard right in ways that the majority of Americans don't agree with. How did we get to this moment? Over at Lever News, levernews.com, Lever News is the publication David Sirota originated, and they've got a really good deep dive into how dark money led to this moment, written in part by Andrew Perez, the senior editor and reporter at Lever News, levernews.com. Andrew Perez, DC, is his Twitter handle, Lever News, also on Twitter. Andrew, welcome back to the program. How did we get here?
Sure. Thanks again for having me.
My pleasure.
So the way that we got, thank you. The way that we got here was, in a giant pile of dark money. We have no idea who's been funding this. That was used to both flip the Supreme Court and build a conservative supermajority there that was, largely built to overturn Roe v. Wade. And, this network is run by Leonard Leo, who served as President Trump's top judicial advisor. And he was a longtime executive at the Federalist Society. And his network has been, building since 2005 to first help confirm John Roberts and Sam Alito. And then in the Trump era, he helped, make the judicial selections, and then helped confirm them as well.
Now, we've had Jeff Charlotte on the program a number of times about the family, this right-wing religious cult in Washington, D.C., that brings in Republican members of Congress and houses them and supports them and runs a national prayer breakfast. Is Leonard Leo affiliated with that?
So I think he might be involved with the National Prayer Breakfast, but, so he's a conservative Catholic. He's, sort of considered to be tied to Opus Dei. But a lot of the people who are involved in this, in his network, are also conservative Catholics.
So how did they pull this off? Leonard Leo organizes large piles of money, and then they use that money to pack the Supreme Court. How do they do that?
Sure. So they take in tons of money. They help run confirmation campaigns for the justices. And then, the thing that we really dove into in our recent piece is, they also then finance the Republican Attorneys General Association, and it's Republican AGs who really led the charge to overturn Roe. It was the Mississippi Attorney General who led that case, the Dobbs case. It's not Thomas Dobbs. It was Lynn Fitch, the Mississippi Attorney General, and she was backed by roughly 24 other Republican Attorneys General. And then this network also then finances a series of other groups that are submitting what are called amicus briefs, which are kind of friend of the court filings, to help give legal justification for overturning Roe. And this is a pattern that we're seeing in many of the cases before the court this term.
Is there any progressive equivalent to this, or liberal or even Democratic equivalent to this?
Yeah, so there's a group, for really about a decade or more, the Judicial Crisis Network, which is Leo's group, was allowed to kind of build in obscurity and kind of secrecy. And it wasn't until the Trump era that liberals decided that it was time to step up and create their own counterforce here. And, the group is probably about as successful at raising money. They're very good at raising money, but, there's a fundamental difference here, which is that, the Republican lawmakers were working like hand in hand with the Leo groups here, adhering to the same exact strategy as they were. So, for instance, let's not hold a vote on Merrick Garland in 2016. And then, let's really race to install Amy Coney Barrett right after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. On the other side, you have this group called Demand Justice that is, pushing for, Supreme Court reforms, hoping to expand the court, backing some judicial nominations. But, you don't have the same kind of unified caucus in the Democratic Party, right? Like
Right.
the Democratic Party is not racing to pack the court right now. Joe Biden won't endorse it. He created a commission to consider Supreme Court reform, and they haven't really done anything other than say that they're not going to do that.
So, the Judicial Crisis Network was running all kinds of ads back when Brett Kavanaugh was being confirmed, when Amy Coney Barrett was being confirmed, presumably Gorsuch. I remember those two, though. And they've renamed themselves. Is that because of the notoriety that they got, that they want to go back to running low under the radar? They're now called the Concord Fund, according to your article this morning.
Yeah. Well, so the reason they rebranded, they actually cited, one of the strategies employed by these liberal groups. There are two groups on the left or among liberals that sort of act as what's known as like a fiscal sponsor, where it's one kind of parent organization that then has, that serves as an umbrella for many, many other organizations. And it's a way to kind of ramp up the secrecy. And you only ever kind of report paying, a handful of vendors for what might be 100 groups under it. So that's sort of their main reason for rebranding. They're still using the Judicial Crisis Network as the name for running all these confirmation ads, and also efforts to influence kind of lower court seats as well. But it definitely adds a new layer of secrecy. It allows them to take, big money and repurpose it or use it for many other purposes. They've had a lot of success doing that. One of the groups that's part of this network is called the Honest Elections Project. People might have seen their work kind of to try to, basically back voter suppression laws. That group is then also filing amicus briefs in some of these cases too before the court. So yeah, it's a kind of all-purpose vehicle now, and they're also using these organizations to then fund other groups backing their court picks as well.
You note that Donors Trust, which is a very little known but huge right-wing group, has kind of you call them the dark money ATM. They seem to be affiliated with this. That the Ricketts family, which owns the Chicago Cubs, gave $3 million to this Concord Fund, the newly reinvented Judicial Crisis Network. But then you say the Concord Fund recently raised nearly all of its recent $48 million haul from 2 anonymous donors. How is that even legal?
Yeah, so that's right.
Is this Citizens United?
Fund, so these groups are operating in a sort of older framework from actually the Buckley v. Vallejo decision that allows them to spend on so-called issue ads. The ads that they're running to influence the court seats and the court selections are considered issue ads. But obviously, like we've seen a huge influx of dark money since Citizens United, and these groups are then working to kind of undermine campaign finance laws more generally and any kind of restrictions on money that can go into these organizations. But, as far as that $48 million goes, yeah, it's really just 2 donors at all that gave that money. And we know one of those donors, just from other tax returns, is a group called the Rule of Law Trust. And that is actually helmed by Leonard Leo as well. So they're using sort of a daisy chain to funnel money into the Concord Fund. But and we'll never know the donors at all to the Rule of Law Trust or to the Concord Fund. We know that the Rule of Law Trust is literally only taking donations that are above $20 million, like $20, $25, $30 million. That's the kind of world that they're operating in, and putting it quite obviously, there are very, very few people on this planet who can afford this. So you're talking about ultra wealthy individuals or corporate interests that are pooling their money and placing it all in one place to then funnel it down this way. But we have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
These are not even tax deductible contributions. So these are fabulously wealthy people. Or am I missing? Do I have that wrong?
Yeah, you're correct. It's not tax deductible. However, businesses can treat donations to 501c4 social welfare organizations as a business expense. So that's why I wouldn't rule out that possibility in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to wrap this up, Andrew Perez, senior editor and reporter at levernews.com. Is it safe to say, Andrew, that we have the best Supreme Court money can buy?
It sure seems it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again for this great reporting that you've done over at levernews.com and for dropping by the program, Andrew. Thank you.